Packers this year. Last year, so obviously you lose Aaron Rodgers.
You do.
Jordan Love is taken over.
Mm-hmm.
8-9 Green Bay Packers, projected for 7.63 wins per PFF. A young group of receivers, some question marks on the offensive line, but certainly some pieces to make it good. And a defense that last year at this time we were saying, this might be the best of the Aaron Rodgers era, or at least since their Super Bowl winning team. And it was not the case.
Very much wasn't.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
Not even close.
But it's another case of I don't think that was necessarily just a crazy thing to say, and the bedrock of why people were saying it last year is still there. So it might be this year that defense looks a lot better.
So let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Jordan Love, we'll get a good look at him today. It seems like camp has been uneven for Jordan Love. You get some bad days, and then all of a sudden you get some sidearm touchdowns in the broadcast scrimmage that they had. Playmaker-wise, it's Jordan Love throwing to Christian Watson, who was just unbelievable last year in the second half of the season in particular as a deep threat. Romeo Doubs, who had all of the hype last year at this time, and to me that might show up a year later, right, for Doubs,
sure,
where he's still a very good, sound receiver to maybe be a possession threat opposite Christian Watson as a deep threat. But it all comes down to Jordan Love, who, when we saw him in the preseason, gave you the Utah State stuff, right? Like, oh, there's a couple special throws, and then like here's some YOLO balls into the end zone on first down line. And then Love had like 10 really good plays against the Eagles in relief, and it's like, oh, he's turned the corner. Wait till they turn it over to Love. So one of the biggest stories in the NFL this year, Jordan Love and the whole transition from Aaron Rodgers to the Jordan Love era.
Yeah, and I feel like because we look at the small snippets of Jordan Love play, and we see bad and we see incredibly good, we feel like he has this amazingly broad range of outcomes. Like, he could be terrible, not viable, not the answer, we move on after a year, or he could be, theoretically, he could put it all together and be the next one of these series of toolsy quarterbacks that somehow become an awful lot of a better player at the NFL level than they were in college. He could also just be a quarterback that stylistically is wildly volatile, and we're effectively looking at some version of Jameis Winston here, right? Which would tally with what he's always been, which is the thing. Like, if you look at his college career, it was one of those weird ones where, you know, he had a bad final season. His best season was the year before that, where he had a much better grade, much better numbers across the board, and then, you know, things changed around him and he didn't respond well to that at all. But if you roll up all of his college career, you end up with a guy who had a big-time throw rate of 5.5%, which is pretty high. It would be very high in the NFL. It's less high at the college level where the extremes are wider. But it's a big number. And a turnover-worthy play rate of 4.2%, which is pretty large at either end.
That'd be high in the NFL.
And it's pretty damn high in college as
massive.
well. Like,
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you had that in the NFL, you're among the worst. If
no,
you're
of
doing
course.
That in college,
but the point being, we're looking at a player who is high at both ends of the spectrum. He's going to make a lot of big plays, and he's going to make a lot of bad plays, and that's kind of the player we're dealing with. And we're dealing with extremely small sample sizes every step of his NFL career. But every step, that's kind of what you see, right? It's a guy who's going to make some crazy plays. Like, even that highlight reel of here's the 12 plays he had in the televised scrimmage or whatever. It's a bunch of bad misses and then a crazy Patrick Mahomes style sidearm rolling to his left type of play. It's like, all right, that's pretty much what he is, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. This is a team with Aaron Rodgers, who was not terrible last year. He did not play nearly at the same level as he did during his MVP seasons. But he was, Rodgers a little up and down, uncharacteristically threw the ball into coverage a few more times than he usually does, missed a few more throws, but all while dealing with a receiving core of just rookies, right? Young guys trying to figure. Sammy Watkins early in the season, and Doubs, who we mentioned, who has to replace Devontae Adams, right? They were trying to replace Devontae Adams last year. Can they actually be better this year by almost certainly downgrading at quarterback? I mean, do you think Love has a chance to be better than what Aaron Rodgers is at 39, 40 years old? I don't know if he's there yet. I mean, maybe he does. Surprise. And the Cinderella story of the Packers going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers is completed with, oh, by the way, here's the gem, Jordan Love. But I think he probably ends up mid-tier to bottom tier NFL quarterback this year.
And that's why I think the win totals, et cetera, are pretty low in Green Bay. Like, I agree with you generally. I think the chances of Jordan Love this year being better than even Aaron Rodgers last year are fairly minimal. Like Rodgers last year, those numbers we talked about, he had a 5.7% big time throw rate. That's pretty damn good. And one of the big uptakes was he had a 2.9% turnover worthy play rate, which is like a percentage point higher than Rodgers typically is. He put the ball in harm's way significantly more often last year than he usually does. And then the general production was down overall, 6.8 yards per attempt, et cetera, et cetera. And a PFF grade of 77.5, which is like almost 15 points down on where it was when he was back-to-back MVPs. It still wasn't bad. Like, if Jordan Love hits that, I would say that's in the higher range of his outcomes than like the negative side. That would be, towards the good end of his bell curve distribution range. I think there's not that much chance he does better than that.
Yeah. So again, I'm not trying to, kill any optimism or whatever. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Love, but realistically, will he be better than just what they had last year on a team that went 8-9? That's going to be tough to do. Now, what can offset that? Offensive line health. David Bakhtiari watch, will he be back and able to put together a full season at left tackle? I think Zach Tom at right tackle in his second year looks like one of the steals of the 2022 draft. I think he'll be very good if they just give him the job, let him run with it. They've got some questions at center with Josh Myers, but Elkin Jenkins is still there. They'll be pretty good, I think, offensive line-wise, again, pending health. And then Aaron Jones running the ball, how much do they rely on him? He's one of those guys that's just been consistently productive. And Matt LaFleur has done a really good job of scheming it up, right? As much as I think Rodgers' MVP seasons, Rodgers played really well in combination with Matt LaFleur being just a magician in the red zone, creating open throws. There's something to that, right? This offense can function if, Jordan Love. We'll see what happens. If they can at least get consistent play from him. And I don't care if he misses throws. I don't want him to lose some of those. I think he's got the special in him. He's got some of those special throws. He'll miss whatever. I don't want him to lose the special. If he still has that, it's going to be an intriguing year, I think, for the Packers.
Yeah, the question will be, so I think the chances are that he has a better year than Aaron Rodgers did last season are fairly minimal. But the supporting cast around him should be significantly better than was around Rodgers last year, because theoretically, Christian Watson should be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. Theoretically, Romeo Doubs should be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. And that's before you get to the additions of guys like Jaden Reed in the draft, the 2 tight ends they drafted, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. Musgrave in particular has been getting rave reviews in training camp, etc. So the supporting cast generally around Jordan Love should be a lot better. So even if he has the same performance as Aaron Rodgers, let's say he matches him throw for throw, the results of those throws should be better because the guys he's throwing to will be better. So it's definitely not true to say that if he just matches Rodgers last year, they'll be exactly the same as they were a season ago. That should still be an improvement for this team. And then we get to the other part, which we mentioned up top, which is, like, what if the defense is dramatically better than it was a year ago because they were supposed to be?